There is no question that the Big 12, by having this early discussions, whatever you want to use the word there, they now can kind of get that hard number, or at least at what it might be a little bit early. And now, is it true that they could then be playing with house money? They may not like the number at all, and then they got to go, whoa, 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 and that could happen. But aren't they then playing with house money? Because then they can say, no, we can't do that, and then let's see what happens over the next 12, 18, or 24 months, and look for something new when other things might become available.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are lots of different things that they could do, and you know, Bob Thompson's thrown out some things. I can't wait to ask him about it, about, you know, getting everybody to their desired conference earlier. If you have those negotiating windows, I still don't, really buy that that's gonna happen. But and that was just a thought exercise. But yeah, there's a lot of different things you could do. But you know, like Craig said, putting it out there early that the Big 12 is doing this means that they are positioning themselves to be aggressive and not. I was kind of always felt with, you'd ask Bob Bowlesby the question about the next media rights deal. He's like, oh, that's coming up in 3 years or 4 years. You're like, well, yeah, but can you maybe get started on it early? Because 4 years from now, it feels like things should be a lot different. And starting it early, you know, that's the first sign of this conference is going to be aggressive. The Pac-12 starting it early was also an aggressive move, but it was in response to, well, shoot, we better get on the stick here because things have changed in a hurry.
K. Hustle, getting ahead of the curve by your mark. There were a couple of comments that I saw in the chat room. Come on, guys, this means that they are putting a fork inside the Big 12 or the Pac-12. I've seen that. I get where you're coming from if that's how you feel. And that's why I want to also hear from two guys who have done this before, who have been a part of these negotiations.
I mean, I agree with whoever said that to some extent, but I don't think the Pac-12's dying. Like, maybe the version of it that we know, but there's going to be something left after. Outside of a full-on merger, there are going to be schools left over. They're not just going to not be the Western Conference schools anymore. They're going to be in some amalgamation of, of teams, and what level and importance and all that, we don't know. But I think the Pac is still going to live. It's just not going to be the Pac-12 as we've come to know it with USC and Oregon and Washington and UCLA and all these schools. Yeah, that's dying. But yeah, outside of a full-on merger, which I know some have suggested, I think Bob Thompson's one of them, that makes the most sense, but is also probably the most unlikely scenario, just because, I don't know that those 20-plus teams all vibe together all that well. I mean, that's the best-case scenario, but that's also probably unlikely. But I don't think the Pac's just going to just disappear entirely. And by the way, I mean, there may be something to that, but that's also been a phrase that could have been thrown around for the last 2 months and has been thrown around for the last 2 months. How many times have we heard the Pac-12's dead? How many times have we heard the Big 12's dead?
Yeah.
I've seen it plenty. I've heard it plenty for the last year, and here we are. And they might be eating another conference like a predator. So, say what you will, but until things are finalized, things aren't finalized. So the Pac's still breathing. It might be a little more shallow. It might be a little bit more nervous, but in some form or fashion, for better or worse, it's going to be around until it's not anymore, and I'm interested to see how that goes.
And the assumption that the Big Ten, which have kind of confirmed that they're going to expand eventually, but is only interested in the rest of the Pac-12 teams, I think sells short of what they've been doing, since Rutgers and Maryland, where they're trying to extend into every corner of the country. So there could be some teams in the Southeast.
It's almost like they're monopoly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get around the whole board. Well, maybe they want to get in the Pacific Northwest, and that would make a whole lot of sense. But it could also be that, this was their first thing, and let's see what happens in the Southeast with who may become available. And that's a long time down the road, but
today, here's the thing, too, though. What does the Big 12 sign?
Yeah.
We're all talking about the Pac-12 and, what lengthy deal they could potentially sign. I mean, what happened? Okay, let's say, and I know we're like getting off into fantasy land here, but that's the whole point of the conversation and the fun of it, really. But if the Big 12 does, in fact, poach the Pac-12 and, this early entry into TV negotiations helps propel that, okay, what combination of schools are coming? Because are Oregon and Washington involved, or are they not? Because that tells us the Big Ten part, right? Right. So, I mean, that move has to be made to some extent, or Stanford if you want to include them, or Cal if you want to include them, although a lot of the scuttlebutt doesn't seem, but like something has to give there. They either have to sign a long-term deal with, or some type of a deal with the Pac, which will be telling, or they're going to be a part of a contingent that perhaps joins the Big 12. And in that case, what do they sign? Because again, the Big Ten contract's going to be up here again before you know it. They did not sign a 20-year deal.
Yeah.
They very strategically placed it to where they're going to get a second deal before their biggest competitor, in theory.
7 years into it, right? I think
Yeah,
that's the
like
number,
I mean that's a short amount of time when you look up and you think about it. That's not that far away. So yeah, there's going to be some interesting moves that had to be made that are going to be, I think, telling in some ways. So yeah, let's see what happens here and how strong these schools can or these conferences can be on their own. But eventually, if there's some wobble and there's some room, that's going to tell us something about the Big Ten as well.
Do you have the Dennis Dodd tweet?